Municipal Utility District 60 monthly meeting. Call this meeting to order. We'll begin with a roll call vote. Make sure that everybody's here. As soon as I find the form. Director Bill Freibel.
Here.
Director Bob Lux is here. Director Donna McAleer.
Here.
Director Paul Shue.
Here.
Director Dale Walker.
Here.
Very good. We have a quorum. We have an agenda. We will have a meeting. So we'll begin with an invocation and the pledges of allegiance. Heavenly Father, we come to you today as an assembled body. We humbly request that you bless our meeting, our community, and our nation. Help us to work diligently, always for the common good and in the best interest of those who we have been elected to represent. Guide us to be insightful and prudent in our intentions, visions, plans, deliberations, decisions, and their fulfillment. Work through us to provide a spirit of welcome to all in attendance, to engage in respectful and thoughtful dialogue and discussion with humility, wisdom, and understanding. Amen.
Amen.
If you wish, prior to reciting the pledges of allegiance, please take an additional moment of silent prayer or additional reflection in the manner of your preference. Thank you. Pledge allegiance to the United States of America. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Pledge the Texas flag. Honor the Texas flag.
I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Thank you. Doesn't appear as though we have any requests for anyone from the public to address us. Is that correct? Thank you. Consider and act upon requests for adjustments to or relief from the specific charges imposed by the district. Mr. Mooney? Right answer. Good job. Okay, agenda item 5. Authorize completion, execution, and filing with the Secretary of State of voting system annual filing form relative to district elections.
Should be on the consent, actually.
Yeah, I thought that was a duplication. We'll take care of that. Very good.
Was that completed last month?
No, that'll be completed in July. So there's a filing period that's between early July and mid-July. So we have it on your June to get authorization to complete that.
Authorization, and then we'll fulfill the documents in
Our office handles.
your up. Okay,
It's
good.
electronic filing.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we're now to the consent agenda. Review and act upon you can read the consent agenda with the financial reports, the minutes of the meeting, and the tax collector's report, and expenses for WWA trustee business. I have just one minor revision to the minutes on page 3, item number 14. It may be insignificant, being as it's something to have to do with the vote. It might be important. The gentleman's name is Wagner, not Nor.
Yeah.
Kenner, yeah, Mr. Wagner, not Mr. Wagner. Further discussion regarding the consent agenda items?
Well, I actually have a question. It says not to disclose certain information for Director Reynolds by acclamation.
Where are we?
Well, item 15 on the minutes.
Reynolds, that's from Mud One. That's the wrong director.
Okay. So not germane to us. Good, thanks.
Okay.
I don't even see where you,
Item 15, page 3, same page. Down.
Right there. Yeah, Sean can fix that.
oh, there it is.
So that pertains to another mud.
Yeah, that's,
You just have the wrong name listed on there, so Shelley can update that. That's a good
Thank you.
catch.
thank you, Paul, for that catch. Further discussion? Hearing none, I'd accept a motion to approve.
Make a motion to approve.
We have a motion, a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Abstain? Motion carries. Okay. We now move to regular agenda item number 11, election of officers and officers of Board of Directors. Brian, this is,
Yeah, so I think we deferred on this last month since we did not have a full board present. So we put this item on this one and the next item regarding trustees on agendas after each election cycle. No actions necessary if we have directors who are, this already has on here that we had.
no, as I've told others, that's just a piece of paper. It was just Shelley having fun with us.
All right. So, we do have Bob as president. I guess that means we have a vacancy at vice president. And then, I'm gonna go back to the minutes. That's probably the better way to look at it. Yeah, Donna is secretary and then Gail is assistant secretary. So at a minimum, we have a vacancy for vice president and we have a vacancy for a second assistant secretary. So if you want to consider nominations for positions that are already occupied, we can do that. And then the way it works is if we have nominations for a position, they don't require a second, get however many nominations we have, 2, 3, whatever. Then we take a vote. If there's more than 3 nominees, we narrow it down to 2, and then we have a subsequent runoff. But we can take votes by voice vote, or we can, do it by paper ballot, tear up a sheet of paper. I've done it both ways. It's up to y'all. And we just go down the list. So if there's not any nominations to change an occupied position, there's no changes and we move on. So we'll start with president. Any nominations for president? Bob is currently president.
I nominate Bob Lux for president.
I'll second that.
Thank you.
Any other nominations? All right, if not, then technically action is not necessary on the vote. If you want to take one, we can.
No,
Okay.
thank you.
All right, then we'll move on to vice president. We do have a vacancy there, so we do need to consider a nomination for vice president.
I'd like to nominate Donna McAleer for vice president.
I will second that nomination.
Any other nominations? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Congratulations.
Thank you.
All right, now we have a vacancy as secretary. Secretary treasurer, since Donna has moved to vice president. Do we have a nomination?
Dale Walker as secretary.
The work is.
I'll second that. I'll second that nomination.
Okay, any other nominations? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay. Motion carries. Next, assistant secretary. So we have 2 vacant assistant secretary positions. We have nominations for our 2 vacant assistant secretary treasurer positions.
I'll nominate Paul Shu and Bill Frogman.
Accept the nominations.
Yes.
All right. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Did a second. Did we
I'll
get-
second.
Oh, oh,
We don't?
No.
Okay.
All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Congratulations. Very good. Okay, that takes us through 11. Moving on to item number 12, trustee and alternates, same drill as officer positions for the MUD. So our current trustee is Bob for MUD 60. And then we have, looks like we have a vacancy for first and second alternate. Okay. Any nominations to alter your current trustee position of?
Nominate Dale Walker for alternate, first alternate.
Okay, we're starting with
Trustee.
primary trustee.
I'm sorry.
Then we move to
Okay.
alternate. Any other nominations for primary trustee?
Alex.
I second.
Any other nominations for primary trustee? Not, then we'll keep that position the same, but not necessary. First alternate, we do have a vacancy. I need a nomination.
Dale Walker.
Nomination for Dale, accept Dale.
I accept.
Okay, any other nominations for first alternate?
I accept.
Two nominations, any other nominations for first alternate? If not, how do y'all want to handle the vote? Voice or paper?
Voice is fine. Voice.
Okay. All those in favor of Dale signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And all those in favor of Paul signify by aye.
Aye.
Okay, 3-2. So Paul, you win on first alternate. So we need a nomination for second alternate. Do we have a nomination for second alternate?
I nominate Phil Trump.
Okay,
I'll nominate Dale Walker.
accept nominations.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
All right, go through the voice vote again. All those in favor of Bill for first alternate?
Aye.
Okay. 3, all those in favor of Dale?
Aye.
Bill, second alternate. That concludes our officer positions for trustee. So I'll hand it back over to you, Bob.
Thank you. Thank you, board members. We are now to agenda item number 13. Approval of district registration form relative to election of officers. I think we've done that, haven't we?
Well, we have to do it again because we now have new officer positions, vice president, secretary, et cetera. So we need to file that form again with the PCQ. We have a motion to approve that again, or to file the updated one with the TCQ.
So moved.
Motion, we have a second.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? Carries. I'll back to you again.
Okay. Very good. Agenda item 14. Receive the monthly SJRA Woodlands Division report, including updates on operations, projects, and public outreach. Pages 15 through 32 of our meeting packets.
I just have. one
Mr.
thing.
Meeks?
Unless you have any questions on anything, as far as the meeting, I passed out a blue and silver flash drive. That flash drive has, yes, that's it. I should have MUD 60 on there. If it has something else, let me know. Okay. That has all the wastewater strategic plan information for the last 2.5 years, all the information we had on the AC water lines, all the information on the project plan, the presentation and everything. Also has all the contracts between MUD 60 and the river. So a little bit of information to help you sleep at night, but if you review it, you have any questions, just let us know. We'll be glad to go through.
Just PDFs,
All PDFs,
all PDFs, good.
encrypted with a secret password.
Oh, what's that? Uh-oh. I'm in trouble.
Shouldn't have any issue.
I will have trouble.
Most of them, so they should all be able to work just fine. That's all I have unless you have any
I
questions.
have a question on page 23. The first item, second line down, pressure regulating valve on Grogan's Mill. Correct me if I'm reading this incorrectly, but you have the design on the top and the construction on the bottom, and you have a budget for the construction of $94,000, and you actually must have received a bid of $137,448. Is that accurate?
Correct.
That's quite a miss. I mean, materials, labor, what,
Just general inflation. The budget for this was set prior to all the big spikes coming in with the 2021, 22, 2022 inflation rates. And so by the time design was done and we went to the market, we were about $40,000 over.
but it's kind of also interesting that you're in closeout and he's only invoiced you for $4,900?
This project was kind of a everyday project, so this particular contractor floats it himself, the entirety of it, and so when he's done, that's when he issues the final bid. So it's a one-time invoice. Next month, you'll see the entirety of it.
Thank you, sir.
Any questions or thoughts?
Oh, yes, I do have a question. Congratulations on the being awarded the Sydney Allison Award, and please explain to us what the Sydney Allison Award represents.
A couple months. Does anybody remember what?
Sidney Allison was Director of Public Works at the City of Corpus Christi, and he was known for in the water wastewater world for his innovative ways of getting waste treatment costs. And so they named the award after him. And one of our consultants actually submitted a nomination on Chris's behalf, and he received this award back in April.
That's terrific, and I think very well deserved based upon the continual running and pulling rabbits out of hats that you do over at the wastewater treatment plants and what you did with the guys up at the surface water treatment plant to give us that extra capacity. Team effort, but you're the leader of the team. Much well deserved. Glad you got it.
Come with the end.
It didn't. Well, you can still get that select sludge shoveler, or are you one already? That's old stuff. I think you're out of awards then, bud.
That works for me.
Are you gonna address anything with the stuff on 33 and 34?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Oh, it is. I am ready, unless there's further discussion regarding the agenda item 14. Hearing none. Agenda item 15, Mr. Shackelford.
You have in your packet on page 33 and 34, an email from me to Eric. This is kind of a follow-up from conversations and requests by various directors, either before the election and even subsequent to the election, where regarding the waste, the strategic plan and the wastewater treatment plant #1, sometimes affectionately referred to as the water reclamation facility #1. New terminology. In our strategic plan, we had done the analysis initially to look at different options, and stakeholders quickly, I'll say, gravitated towards an MBR technology process, which is membranes. It provides a little bit cleaner effluent, and it is more prepared to address permit enhancements later on in life, enhancements in the sense of more stringent permits. But we've had some comments and questions by other directors where they said, we want to see a true comparison between conventional versus MBR. And so we also got to thinking, all right, so if it's going to occur, it needs to occur now, not before we get into design and then have to start over. The other thing we've heard is there are several directors that are interested in knowing what it would cost to replace in place. Now, there's a little bit of difference between what we've presented in the past about repairing a few items. And if you remember the net present value analysis that David Munn did last meeting, the April meeting, he talked about you spend up to a certain amount, you go over this certain amount, spending that becomes wasted dollars because you will still need to do a major rehaul of the sewer plant at some point. And so we said, all right, if we're going to go through one more analysis, let's make certain we're looking at all of the analysis at one time. Now, when they talked about replacing in place before, that was kind of on a phased approach. What we're talking about here is doing it all at one time, not phasing it in, because if you string it out over a 15 or 20-year period, you're going to end up spending more money. The plant's going to be in a state of reconstruction for 15 or 20 years, and that's tough on the plant, tough on the operators, tough on the contractors. So what we're proposing is to evaluate the three options: replace in place, conventional treatment, and conventional would be similar to the type of process that we have at the plant today, and then NBR technology. We'd look at all the pros and cons for that. We would also look at, I'm going down to the second bullet point, second dark bullet point, the delivery method. There are a couple of delivery methods that could be utilized in bringing this project through design and into construction. One of the delivery methods is competitive seal proposal, and this is something that we use day in and day out, where the bid alone is not the sole driver of selection of a contractor. They also have to have qualifications. They've got to be able to demonstrate they know what they're doing, and they have an organized way of going about the project. The other method being considered is construction manager at risk. Construction manager at risk is used by a lot of school districts in delivering a high school or an elementary school. It gives the school districts basically a guaranteed maximum price. The contractors involved with design consultants during the process, during the design consultants time period in delivering drawings and specifications. So you're kind of doing a value engineering while you're designing. We've used construction manager at risk once before through the groundwater reduction plant, surface water plant. It worked quite well. There are some costs associated with both delivery methods. Competitive seal proposal might require a program manager and a consultant to serve in that role. And then a construction manager at risk delivery method would require an owner's advisor. So there are some costs, and we're also asking that we look at the pros and cons for the delivery method. Third thing, the third bullet point down towards the bottom of the page, obviously we have a site layout for the NBR process. We would need updated site layouts for the conventional on the new land and then conventional with replaced in place. And the reason I say that is there are some of the basins that they were designed under an old set of rules, and the newer rules might require more redundancy, more resiliency in what we have to provide going forward. For example, we have 3 clarifiers now, we might need 4, we might need 6. Same thing with our aeration basins. We might also want to size them slightly different so that we can maintain one and still operate and take care of the peak flows as they come in. I think you heard Chris say, the new directors heard Chris say that during the storm recently in May, we had 32 million gallons come through the plant, and our peak flow design number is 18. So we exceeded that amount, and we're trying to figure out where that water would go if depending on the type of process that we're looking at. The fourth thing that we're looking at would be obviously cost estimates for each of those options, whether it's a replace in place, whether it's conventional, whether it's NBR. And then we would also look at what the cost would be associated with the CSP delivery method versus CMAR. We're also looking at a 50-year planning horizon because that's kind of what we've done our initial analysis on the NBR. Some of the directors of recent comments that we've heard is they'd rather look at only a 25-year delivery, 25-year planning horizon for the existing plant. We think we have some reservations about why that's a viable time period to look at. We would look at what the potential magnitude to the rate is. That was something we looked at early on. Still need financial advisors at some point to say what the true impact might be for the rate that this would do a basic understanding. Final thing we would include in the analysis is evaluate manpower needs. And that's both internal and external. Internal being how many more staff do we need to bring on permanent to help move this project from design into construction. The alternative would be, okay, if we're not bringing on permanent staff, what sub-consultants might we need to do construction administration, construction inspection, again, owners, advisors, or program managers. So the whole purpose behind this is to be able to bring to you a project cost, a total project cost that includes everything, land, personnel, all the ancillary work that needs to be done, testing and designing, structural, electrical design, and also construction with construction, a construction contingency. You recall from the strategic plan, our estimate ranged anywhere from 20% below a number to 40% above because we're still at that 1%, 2% design level on the project. We don't have plans and specs to nail it down. So we're still at I'm trying to remember what the acronym is, but there's a national society that does, that basically identifies the different levels of cost estimating. We'd still be at a level 4 or 5, which is still very conceptual. So we don't have a proposal because we wanted to make certain that majority of the MUDs or all of the MUDs were in favor of this concept. So what we're looking for is our ask of you all today is talk amongst yourselves, not a formal decision for you to make today, but talk amongst yourself and direct your trustee to go either to the July or August meeting to, I'll say, give us an indication of which, if you are interested in doing this additional feasibility. The trustees are the ones that would approve going forward, because it is already in the budget. So I'm happy to answer any questions on that topic if you have some.
I'd open the floor to discussion amongst ourselves, and we'll include Mr. Shackelford and others as required for the construction. Person, go ahead. Yes, ma'am.
Went on a tour, I guess, a year and a half ago.
Yes, ma'am.
And I think there was an aeration basin and a clarifier that were offline
Yes,
because they didn't need to be used. But now I'm hearing that that's not enough capacity. Is that because of that one May incident or, that's what I don't understand. If we need to increase capacity, if we are not using the capacity,
We'll let Chris answer.
When we're only using-
Operational.
okay.
So the aeration base, all clarifiers are still in service. It may have been down for the day, but all three are required to be in service for
Okay.
daily average flow and then peak flows. The aeration basins have been out of service, one since about 2012, the other one since about 2023 officially. They are still required by the permit to be in service. And so even though they're out of service, everything is still hooked up and we can still put them back in service to maintain compliance with TCEQ. So the new plant, the current plant, 7.8 million gallons a day. The new plant's actually dropping capacity, but we will need to regain some of that aeration basin space that currently does not exist. Because right now what happens is when you have a big rainfall come through, like we did in May, it basically starts, there's no detention time. It starts to wash out all the solids from the mountain. And so if we had those other two basins back online, there would be a little bit more detention time throughout the facility.
So did you put them back online for that May event?
We did not for that one.
Because there wasn't enough time to put them back online? They just took you by surprise?
We had 4.5 inches of rain in about an hour and a half to 2 hours. And that at that point, it'd take us half a day to put them back online. So We washed out some solids.
But we also have structural issues with those aerations.
There are structural issues with those aeration basins 1 and 2. If you recall, if you saw them, they share a common wall, and there were some metal supports holding up the wall.
Buttress, there's like a buttress up, there's about four buttresses on one side of the wall, if I recall.
Right, because that wall started leaning originally after it was constructed, so structural issues is the main concern for you.
But if you had to use it, you could, right?
We could.
Yeah.
Because if we claim that they're entirely out of service and decommissioned, then it's in permanent violation, or we have to reduce permanent capacity of the plant, which then eats into the amount of capacity we've technically sold to y'all that we have to provide. So it's a domino effect.
How do you do something in the future that can foresee a big rainfall coming like that so you can put it back online as quickly as possible? I know it takes you half a day, takes you like 6 hours or something to do that.
Right now, it's just if you have something that just has that much of a, can't think of or that heavy impact all at once, it is what it is. We've dealt with it before, but if we do have it where it's extended over like a 3 or 4 day period, we have the floating mixtures up on top of the hill, and we have some quick connects, so it's down there about 3 hours to put them in if need be.
Like a Harvey or something like that.
Correct. So Allison, something to that degree that leaders.
Or something that's brewing right now in the Gulf.
Right, that's something's
I
coming.
mean, I was gonna ask that, but that's kind of like you're probably prepared for that, right? It's coming this way. And as we got surprised on tax day and Memorial Day, was that 16? Correct me, 16, right? Thanks. We got one coming again. And if it coalesces, then we're gonna probably come close to what hit us earlier in May.
We can also, instead of using those basins to some degree, we can go quicker. We can go into the lift stations that are right behind the plant and start cycling those and man those. We can use those as catch basins, if you will, to meter it into the plant. So there's a lot of little tricks and things to do depending on how much time is needed. So we may work on the lift stations while we're putting in the floating aerators. Or we may just say it's a lot of water coming in, turn off the pumps and blowers and just let the solids settle and the water go over the top of it. So a lot of little tricks we can do.
Just a general comment. I think this is a wonderful proposal to hopefully get to where we all want to go, and that's to yes, and to satisfy the concerns that other directors and trustees have brought up. And thank you for coming up and proposing this. From a personal perspective, I think the design bid and competitive sealed proposal or the CMAR, you've worked with both. They're both far superior for a project of this complexity than design bid build. So I would hope that would continue to be the approach to tendering the offer. Personally, I don't know how you build a 25-year plant, but I'll leave that to the professionals to figure out.
That needs some clarification. You're talking about 25-year plant versus a 50-year plant? I'm not following that.
What I'm understanding is they want to be able to just fix, certain directors want to be able to fix certain things and to extend the life of the current plant by 25 years.
I see. Okay.
That's my understanding. But at the end of that, you still have to rebuild the plant. And all you've done is buy 25 years with potential higher expense at a later date for someone else.
So did we look at that? Didn't we look at that before? What that expense might be?
We looked at, we have some costs for replacing certain components, and that does extend the life of a certain component. What our concern is ultimately TCQ with their new rules, it's kind of a domino effect. Once you start with one thing, then you end up going to the next base, next process unit, next basin, and you end up doing the whole thing. After all, only it might spread out over 10 or 15 year period of time, and you've spent more money and you tied the plant up in construction for 15 years. Chris's guys have to operate around that, and the contractor has to work around them. And you run a greater risk of cutting the line or cutting the electrical to something that's pretty major, and you're down trying to get things repaired while you're still trying to operate the plant.
But you're doing that already if something breaks down anyways, right?
Not to that extent, because we're talking major construction. In this case, for example, go back to the aeration basins where you have walls that are bulging and failing and are braced. How do you replace an aeration basin? Take out the current aeration basin, put in a new one, and still keep the plant operation. You have to bring in temporary tanks to
Yeah.
handle that flow.
Well, fortunately, you have one down anyways, so hopefully, you replace that one and then keep going with the other ones and then bring it back
Remember,
online.
they're all interconnected. So how do you replace? If the concrete is already 50 years old, how do you tie into a 50-year-old concrete with new concrete and expect the old concrete to last another 50 years? That's part of the dilemma. It's like trying to rebuild your engine while it's running.
Or build an airplane in flight. You ever seen that? You ever seen that commercial?
No, but
EDS. EDS, the famous software company.
Mhm.
Look it up. You can look up the video.
That's the concern.
So my question is more about this. This will be a holistic approach to looking at the whole plant, whole facility
Right.
to get another 20 years and the cost associated with that. We never did that before.
this is 25 years though.
Well,
25 would,
my proposal within here is replace in place, you get a 50-year life. So that all three are on the same comparative analysis.
So is that what typically the life of a treatment plant is 50 years? If you build it today, it should last 50
For the concrete.
for the concrete part.
Mechanical typically is a 20 to 25-year.
But then you just replace them as needed. But you're talking about the concrete's failing.
And that's a huge expense.
So if you repair or replace something that's currently existing, it is the requirements, regulations for its effectiveness. Is it considered new? In other words, it's got to meet the updated
Yes,
requirements. You don't basically
you're not grandfathered to the old.
you're fixing something, but you're not grandfathered to when it was initially put in to bring it up to that standard. You got to meet the new standard. Okay.
And one other thing I did not mention, but it's also the next agenda item. Because we're proposing this analysis that extends, this will take 6 to 8 months. There's some concerns about a supplemental agreement sitting out there, just sitting pending. Plus, it also specifically addresses our technology. So we're recommending that if we go forward with this new feasibility, that the current supplemental agreement be rescinded and that we start all over.
Start over so
Once
that
we
we-
have the final product identified.
So we can have the 3 different versions to look at
Yes, ma'am.
and get all the costs.
And your point is that it's going to be apples to apples to apples.
That's
That's your
what I'm trying to get accomplished.
Yeah.
Because
So it can be a good comparison across all options.
Right. And you're saying this is because the current wastewater treatment plant is beyond its useful life in a few years.
It is, yes, ma'am.
I'm a little concerned if you'd refresh our memories, the timeline. If I remember correctly, this was to go online in 10 years.
No, sir. The original concept was start design in 26 with construction starting, online in 20.
Yeah.
Online complete.
2030.
That's not that,
2030.
that's 5 years.
Yeah, that's,
But it's going to take 2 to 2.5 years to get the plans done and approved.
We understand that, but
and
it's
3
really,
years to construct.
do all these additional, I guess where I'm leading with this is, do these additional studies, are they going to extend that design life? Or that startup date? Yeah.
Yes, it would.
So you're gonna have the challenge of keeping the plant operational.
it's operational right now, though.
No,
It's doing a good job right
Yeah.
now.
So is my car and it's got 140,000 miles on it. I'm not sure about
Mine's
tomorrow.
300,000.
Oh, then
It's a
you
Lexus.
might have more concern than I.
There's B-52s that are now flying with the grandchildren. So if you take care of something and you maintain it, I'm using aerospace as a comparison.
But the B-52 don't have cracks in their fuselage like our clarifiers.
Well, I've actually, you should go up to a B-52.
Don't do that.
Check them out. They actually are,
Wait,
is the stress, it's wavy on them because they've been out there so long. They're putting new Rolls-Royce engines on them, I think. So it's actually being flown by grandchildren of the original pilots.
As long as it's not Boeing, right?
No, it is Boeing.
I
That's
know.
my point is things that are fine today, or at least operational, let's not say fine, but operational. In 6, 8, 12, 15 months, they may or may not be.
That's not that
Between
fast.
now and-
Consideration. It can't be.
but between now and whenever the design.
You ought to go to Vegas. Sure, these things.
We know we will have some things to repair and replace. So we're talking major things that we shouldn't be repairing and replacing and patching.
Further discussion required?
Well, on the timeline, so you said 6 to 8 months.
Yes, sir.
That means as a minimum, the timeline, the bigger timeline that you were talking about before is going to be extended by about a year at least.
Correct. Because depending on when this is put on the trustee agenda, if it's in July, it's 6 to 8 months from basically August 1st.
Wouldn't it be notice to proceed to the consultant that you retain?
Yes, but my point is, if it doesn't get approved till August, then that September 1 would be the start date for the consultant.
Sorry to belabor the point, but what was the supplemental amount?
40 million.
40 million, and that's going to go up, I would presume.
Well, no, we're talking about rescinding that
Starting
For now.
over. Mhm.
once a decision is made on what path forward we're going to take, we will still need a supplemental agreement. We will still need a certain amount of money to come in and get the design underway. And we'll still need 2 years worth of capitalized interest to be able to pay 2 years worth of debt service, while the Woodlands agencies are filling their coffers, pay the annual debt service.
Well, so my point with the supplement is with inflation, it's going to go up.
It could go up, yeah.
It could go up. We don't know what that number is yet. I'm not expecting you to quote a number.
Well, our consultant mentioned that every month we delay, it's $1 million increase.
Okay, so we're 48 million, 50 million, round it off.
Yes, but my concern is if we don't do the study, we might be missing out on cost savings somewhere. We might not opt to do one of the options and do a cheaper option because the consultant will say, you can do it this way. You can repair in place and this will save you $20 million, or something like that. Or they might say, well, you don't know in 25 years what the new technology is going to be that could be even better than the membrane technology too. So we just need someone to come in and do the study and let us know so that we know what we're having our residents pay for, because that's who's going to pay for is them.
I understand that.
See, so
One other thing is we're proposing to use an independent consultant that has not been involved in the strategic planning today.
I noticed that on your document here.
right.
So this is going to be a person hired specifically,
To do the independent analysis.
has had very little to do, just coming in with clean, fresh eyes.
Right.
I think that's very wise.
I-
I think
I
that's
think
very
that's
wise.
awesome.
I noticed that on your discussion here. I think your
Tried to
conclusion,
prove my basis.
yeah, well, the second paragraph up, I think that's a wise thing to do. Very wise.
Any other questions?
Well, that cost escalation point, I would just keep in mind that, one, I think that cost escalation was on the entire project cost
Yes, it
estimate,
was.
so close to 300. So the bonds would be issued in tranches, so it wouldn't be all showing up in that first tranche. I think the second thing to keep in mind is that I think that cost escalation was based on assumed inflation. Is that right?
5%.
But doesn't take into account that you're gonna be assuming that you're not getting a zero interest loan from, which you probably wouldn't. You're gonna have interest that you're gonna be paying that's gonna cut into the inflation amount. So you're gonna have an additional cost that's gonna be offset by the run up in the price. So whatever that delta is between your interest rate and the inflation factor is really what you're paying, because you're avoiding interest that would be accruing while this is happening. So it's between those two is what your real opportunity expense is to go through this exercise.
Good point.
I have two other quick things. On the wastewater treatment plant, you have a document like this in front of you. This gives you the status of the land acquisition process. We're still doing phase one evaluations. We're still doing surveys. We have not started appraisals. We have not issued any letters, offer letters. And we have a weekly call, and I will bring you a monthly report. This is a very high level. We don't give you information on
Supposed to sign
what we're offering the landowners because that's confidential.
I screwed up. I started in the wrong line.
But this.
Unless you want Dale to sign it.
Just to refresh memories and Paul and for Bill, March of 2023, the board authorized us to proceed with land acquisition for the sewer plant. And it's the tracks in blue to start with. And then we may be able to acquire the tracks in green. They're all in the floodplain, but some of the values coming in on that property is pretty excessive for a floodplain property, floodway property. So we'll just have to see how that goes. And then the final thing of just the total report. We've done regular inspections on the Bear Branch Dam, which you all are a funding partner in the Bear Branch maintenance. Done some fence repair. Found several places, a lot of fence repair, some graffiti elimination. And then that pretty much covers everything that.
Not a fallen tree or cleaned up.
Those are yours.
We're happy to answer any questions you might have. Main ask here is talk to your trustee and instruct them on how they're to both going forward on this feasibility study.
I have this one.
Oh, you've done the Bear Branch. Sorry, excuse me. We got papers going around here. How do you propose that this discussion be furthered? I mean,
We don't have an action item, but have discussion on the direction on how to vote on this at the July meeting.
it's not going to come up on the July Board of Trustees meeting?
No, I'm talking about at the July trustee meeting. Have the discussion now.
Yeah.
July
Right.
trustee meeting on whether to authorize the river authority to proceed with this.
Yeah, I would just say quite simply, after the discussion that we've had, either a yes support it or no, don't support it, right? Just an up or down vote?
This
Right,
proposal
the proposal.
of the three different options.
And, yeah, all the stuff that has been explained to us and so forth. So informal,
I think I'm in agreement with trying to acquire land because it may not be there in a few
That's
years.
already been resolved.
Okay,
Yeah, this is just to move forward on that,
Just-
email,
just
page
to be
33.
what's on 33 and 34.
Evaluate.
Support, don't support?
Evaluate the three options.
I'm in agreement with evaluating the three options.
And then we'll be able to go over it after the independent engineer
Yes.
consultant looks at it with fresh eyes and then.
We'll bring it with a recommendation.
And everybody knows the reason why it's a trustee vote. It's because essentially you're redirecting a budgetary line item for a different use. So because it's a budget line item of SJ's budget, That's why it's a trustee vote.
Clear on my direction. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Anything else from SJRA?
Not on,
Oh, this,
not on that.
Okay, but anything up? Dan, are you up for something? Or if not, I'd like you to introduce the guests that we have from the,
I can do that real quick.
please.
So, sorry, we're gonna make. So with us today, we got obviously a large crew at SJRA, but two I do want to point out that you haven't seen before is Robbie and Adriana. They are two of our engineering interns, working with us for the summer. So we're happy to have them. We want to get them out, see different experiences, and, you know, for the River Authority, you know, meeting with our customers, such as the MUDs, is a big piece of what we do. So we want them to kind of experience, you know, meeting such as this. We're not gonna have them go to all 11 that we need to go to every month, but we figured this would be a good one for them to sit in on and see. Kind of
Welcome.
information.
Hope it was enjoyable.
Where are they from? Houston? Cool. San Antonio.
UTSA?
Oh, I go there.
Okay.
Okay.
A&M and Prairie View A&M.
Okay.
So, yeah, thank you.
Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you. You have a financial?
16, we need to take action on the rescission of the previous approval on the supplemental agreement.
Okay.
So.
The motion to
rescind
rescind the supplemental. I think that you'd make that motion.
And a second.
And further discussion on this, we have a motion and a second. Further discussion on this matter? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstain, motion passes. Okay. Agenda item 17, receive and discuss the draft 2025 SJRA division budget.
We have two different items on here. The first was the Woodlands Division budget was presented last month. This month, if you have any questions, we can go through those. The vote would be next month by the MUDs and the official vote by the trustees in August. So this is just if you have any questions on the Woodlands Division budget. The other item is that Jamie is here to present the Bear Branch budget. So.
At your place, I handed you a copy of the draft Fair Branch budget. And then as well as a breakdown of contribution by MUD. This budget is for the ongoing maintenance and operations of the Bear Branch Dam and flow easement. There's not a lot of change as far as the operations and maintenance goes. Their largest change would be, we are seeing a larger amount of trees fallen. And so we increased the budget for clearing to accommodate that for future years. The repair and replacement fund. So this year we are showing it a little bit differently. We have an O&M fund and then the repair and replacement fund, which is your project plan. That is for the two projects for the Bear Branch Dam and the spillway cement repair. Those projects are partially funded by your O&M cash as well as the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. Did you not get a copy, Bill?
I did.
It looks like this.
Just,
Here's an extra. Thank you.
Can I just give you mine?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll give it.
This is the ongoing of that project. We did start with those projects and we have started receiving U.S. Army Corps of Engineers payments back. So this is just a continuation of that project and would require an additional contribution for the cash portion from the 5 MUDs. Y'all's portion this year will be $66,244. And that is for both the operations and maintenance, as well as the repair and replacement side of things, which is the projects. So unless you have any questions, I can answer.
the sooner the better. We put the shovels in the ground and get after it.
Yeah.
Thank you. Jamie. Anybody questions for Jamie? No. Going back to agenda item 17, the 2025 SJRA Woodlands Division budget. Dale, you didn't have a chance for a bite at the apple on that. Did you have anything that the rest of us discussed it without much input? I have a copy of it if you'd like to do a quick perusal, but, you know,
Just a reminder, the water rate is reducing by 2% or 5 cents. And the wastewater rate is staying the same. And the GRP rate is dropping 7% from $3.20 to $2.97.
Since you had efficiencies that you had. I'm trying to remember why.
As well
Yes.
as water demands and GRP has increased 4 million gallons a day. So the additional revenue didn't have the additional expense, so therefore the rate went down.
Okay.
Wilderness Division is because the GRP rate went down as well as the water loss was at 4.5%. We dropped, was at 5.5% this year. We dropped it down to 4% next year. So then a little efficiencies here and there to gain a reduction on the water side.
give Mr. Walker a chance, a couple minutes, so if anybody needs to stretch their legs, and so he can, being as he was on the high seas last month's meeting. Deserves a shot at the discussion.
That was in our last month's mud
Mm-hmm.
packet too, 'cause I think he's got it.
Was it in here?
I think it was in there.
Okay, thanks.
See,
No, I
Oh, you
don't.
have last month's, okay.
I gave him last.
Oh, okay, okay,
It's
that's,
in there somewhere.
that's where I got this, yeah.
Nothing out of the ordinary that I can think of in last year's budget, or next year's budget. Something outside of water rates.
So the loss or the, I'll use the phrase shrinkage is improved. You're able to reduce the loss.
It's a little on the aggressive side, if you will, to be at 100%. What we're seeing is as more data is coming in with the AMI meters that y'all have installed, that's where that water loss is shrinking. We're getting more accountability from it.
It's more accurate.
It's more accurate. I would prefer a 5%, but when I'm looking at the monthly revenues coming in, the revenues for the water system are always a little bit higher. And so that's why we dropped them to 5.5.
That's good news. No further questions.
Very good. Okay, I believe that we now go to agenda item 18. Is that correct? Donnie, is this yours? Or is this Eric? Is this yours? Eric and Don. Nobody wants to take this one, Don. And I think I might know why.
You know, we met a few weeks ago to kind of get an update on the process, the project, as you recall, for the last year or so. There's been a study that's been done to, the original goal was to see what could be done to help improve the drainage in the, I'll call it the Research Forest, Gosling to the high school kind of corridor.
Oh, you haven't?
Yeah.
There's a number of
Thank
areas in that region that, you know, have historically been, I'll call hotspots in those major rain events
Yeah,
that
that-
struggle a little more than the rest of the woodlands. Still hold up pretty good, but the goal of this study was to identify ways to facilitate or improve the drainage through the area, particularly to lower the water surface elevation along Research Forest to facilitate emergency vehicles getting in and out during those major rain events. So that study was done. It was the Bear and Panther branches have been modeled, and so that part's been completed. Recently, there was an updated cost estimate. If you recall, and I wasn't here for it, but my understanding is you have about $11.3 million in different forms, from MUD 67 to some no interest loans to some cash from the MUDs, you being a participant of that, for about 11.3 million, I think, in total. We received and reviewed the cost estimate that was most recently done a few weeks ago, and that kind of spurred us to say, okay, let's get an update to the stakeholders. There's 6 stakeholders in the project here. And so Donnie's here today to kind of go through some of the history and then also update you on the cost estimate, and then finance report or what the options are, basically.
I think the last part of the setup is just to note what your pro rata share is of the project, which is 1.1%.
small player, but, it's, what, 67, 46, 47 Metro. With 67 stepping out there to be the lead a few years ago.
Yes, my name's Donnie Reed, LJA. I am a mud engineer. We've done drainage for the Woodlands back from when it started in the late seventies to the eighties. And that is the model that we initially had that we have updated with this, new program here. I was asked to come in here because I know there's some new board members and we'll probably have the most history of anybody on what's going on. We did this model back in the late eighties, state of the art. And we've been using that model. It's functioned as it was intended. Drainage in the Woodlands has done exactly what it's supposed to per that model. However, we're in 2024 now. Models have been updated. There's new criteria. There's new regulations. Agencies don't recognize those old they recognize them, but any new update, just like Ed was talking about now, there's new regulations that you can't get grandfathered in. And so a new model is something that would be required. And that was part of this whole process. When we first looked at this back in, I guess it was 2016, Dale, I think you mentioned, the two events. There was a tax day and Memorial Day that happened. And I was talking with my drainage guys just earlier. I believe the year before, there was also something that happened. There was some event that happened in Memorial Day of 15.
15,
that
yes.
kind of happened. And then fast forward to 16, you had the tax day. And everybody, and then you had tax day. And then a month later, you had that.
August 17. August
And
17.
then-
We got one brewing right now.
Yeah, and then right after it, then you had, a year later, you had Harvey. The JPA, which was at the time the Woodlands Water Agency, said, hey, y'all come out and take a look at this stuff and see what's going on. And combination of all the different muds, we've looked at several improvements, inlet improvements, swell improvements, drainage ditch improvements, cutting out curbs, doing all sorts of things to help these localized events throughout the Woodlands, and probably spent, I think the muds have spent, upwards of $1 million+ on some of those improvements. The Capstone area, which is the area around the high school, was one of the places that we're looking at. We've looked at different options, and there really wasn't an option of inlet or ditch improvements. We basically came up with, in order to get drainage improvements in this area, we need to do some improvements on Bear/Panther Branch. Bear Branch from roughly around the high school to Gosling Road, and then Panther Branch from Gosling Road up to some distance up. I can't remember exactly where. Not quite Greenbridge or Greenbrier, or Greenbridge, I believe. Not that far up, but pretty close. We looked at it using the old models that we had, did what we could, and determined that if we do some improvements along Bear Branch and Panther Branch, we can get significant improvements based on the tax day event, because I believe that was the largest event that happened. Excuse me. So we ran some models, said, here's what we can, or ran those models, looked at it, and said, we can get a reduction, put a cost estimate together based upon, what we had at the time, and came up with, basically, we needed $11.3 million is what it was. Some of the things that we said when we get into it, this is based on the old model. I keep kind of bringing that up because once we run the new model, there's, better technology, better analysis that may say, hey, this number may go up quite a bit. Or it may be, inflation, we had COVID that came through that, made prices go up as well. We're just doing our best guess at the time. And so when we ran the new models, there was more excavation, there's more clearing in order to get close to the numbers, and we were close to the numbers of what we need to get the reduction. And so we had, if you look at that number, it's 11.3, but that's with engineering and some other things. It's roughly about a $10 million construction cost. We're saying right now we're about $16 to $18 million. So we're about $6 or $8 million more for this at this area. And that's basically where we stand. Now, also what we looked at is at the time, we ran an analysis of, was there anything that we could do at Bear Branch? And based on the model, wasn't really a whole lot we could do. Was there any other improvements on Bear or Panther that we could do? We really didn't. Downstream of Gosling, you have to go through an out track. It's called the Browder track. That we said, hey, maybe there's some benefit there. But at the time, we would have to go acquire that land. We didn't have, as much data that we needed to go over there. So we said, we're not going to even look at that at the time. But once we get into the model, maybe that's something that we can look at. And so as I'm here now, hey, this is one option that we have. It's one, it's 16, 18 million to do this new option, but you're going to be clearing out some trees. You're going to be, putting in some detention right there at Gosling. Are there a couple of more options that we possibly could look at? That may be some of the things that we need to do to see if, hey, instead of having the detention ponds there, maybe we can put them up a little bit further down. Having a new model in place, we could run that and look at that. We're not talking significant amount of dollars to run a new analysis. So don't feel like, oh, we're gonna run another analysis. Once you put the model together, building that model is what takes a whole lot of money. That's what took a lot. We've got that place. Now to go run some different scenarios, we're talking, few $1,000s as opposed to hundreds of thousands of dollars. So just want to give you all a little recap, let you know if you have any questions for me.
Your model, does it take into account current surface elevations that may have changed on Research Forest next to the high school?
Yes, as best as we could.
Okay, so your model from the 80s and your model from the 70s, the surface elevation has been updated, because my understanding is there is some fault movement there that has.
Based on the current LiDAR that we have. We haven't
Right.
gone out in the field and do, more detailed stuff. We haven't used the
So
current latest and
We've
greatest.
got all of the LiDAR.
There may be some more. We
Yeah,
can go
I
pick up some other stuff. And I think as we go through it, if we need to go pick up some shots underneath a bridge or something,
Okay.
we need to do that
Yeah,
as well.
because that greatly complicates your model about whether or not it's going to be able to accept the water flow
Sure.
that you're expected.
Sure. And basically what we looked at from this process, we're just speeding up water as it's going through through Panther and Bear Branch and speeding it up. Well, if you speed it up, that means it's going to get faster to somewhere else. So that's why we have big detention ponds there to slow it down as it goes further downstream.
That's where you said detention ponds are to be cleared. So this would be a floodplain area that is currently vegetated. You'd go in and you'd remove that vegetation, be able to let the water collect and then go out.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
So
Would
'cause
that
you got,
flood any other neighborhoods further south of the Woodlands
No,
though?
you're not. You're basically, when further south of the Woodlands, you run right into Spring Creek. So you're dumping into Spring Creek. But if we're speeding up water through Bear Branch, right at Gosling, then you have the rest of the woodlands that's downstream getting to Lake Woodlands that would cause, an increase on your current residents. That's why we have these detention ponds there to mitigate that.
Okay.
So like I said, this was based on, preliminary analysis. Once we got into it, as you can see in that first picture, Dale, that you're looking at, that's the original, that's the original one. Those detention ponds, that's what you see right here. And you see right there, or I'll come back, that one. This one, these detention ponds. That was from the original, that's from the original model. As we ran it more, those increased a little bit. The excavation that we needed to ditch increased a little bit. A little bit more underbrushing. So there's some things that need to be added in order to get those values that we needed.
So with the anticipated or updated costs being greater than the funds that we had allotted or had identified previously, I kind of suggest that there's probably one of three options. One is do nothing, walk away from it. One is try to find some additional funding. I'm not sure that the MUDs will or will not be interested in finding that magnitude. It's possible. However, I see the opportunity to possibly have this project be a part of the Water Task Force initiative to possibly take this and run with it and see if there's some fed, state, local funding, create partnerships with, Howard Hughes, the township, the county, the precinct, and then state and federal. Because this is a project that does benefit a good chunk of
other areas,
well, certainly of that region of the Woodlands, which is essentially the area that's most affected usually during the heavier rainfall events, except for Creekside, obviously. And Creekside had its own issues during Harvey. And then we have some Groves Point areas down south. But this area in particular has historically been the more challenged area for drainage. So I think this project will definitely help that area. So, and the community for that
But what
matter.
we're talking about is more 1.1% we're at. Got that right, of 16 million, that's what, $100,000. It's not $1 million.
For 60, that's correct.
So, thank you, Bill. But just to confirm, the original budget was 11.3 plus or minus. And you said about 10 of that was construction. And now the professional services remain the same, right? And the construction is estimated to be 6 million in addition, from 10 to 16.
Yes.
Okay. So that would make the whole project 16 plus 11, right? 27?
No, he's saying it's increasing from 11 to 16 or 18.
So it'd be $6 million.
Additional.
Yeah.
And that's roughly, that's based.
6 to 8 million more maybe.
What we're looking at, I mean, just running the model, the right model that we have right now, saying, you know, we have the old model, now we got the new model, we put this information in. We said, okay, we need our detention ponds a little bit bigger, our excavation's a little bit more, you know, cost went up a little bit. So we've increased, it's about 6 to 8 million roughly. You know, once we finalize the model, once we go into design, we can, you know, get a better cost estimate, you know, to come back to you with, if that's just.
But Eric made the point, this might be going over to the One Water or whatever was passed was there something passed in the legislature about a flood control, doing a flood control agency?
No,
I guess I was
No, I think you're talking about the bill that you mentioned before that introduced about creating a regional.
right.
Yeah, there was a bill.
So this might.
Never made it.
Never made it. Well, if it had, this could be part of that too. Flood control, because this is a flood control issue. Really, that's what it really is, I think.
Yeah. I don't know. If that were ever.
Prevent
created.
Harveys and outlet.
Yeah, they typically wouldn't focus on a project this small. A regional water authority would, flood control authority would probably look at bigger things, but.
This doesn't address anything from potential wetlands.
Yeah, this doesn't have anything wetlands in it, because if you also look at that cost estimate, so that's a good point that you brought that up. When we started back in 16, 17, I made a couple of trips to the Army Corps of Engineers and talked to them about this project, showed them where it was, and there are some wetlands that are, you know, that's kind of the.
Oh, that's been redefined. There's that landmark case. It's Idaho, if I recall.
Administration.
Well, no, that the Supreme Court ruled that in order to be a wetland, it doesn't have to be my pond
That's right.
that occasionally gets flooded from the stream. It has to be contiguous in normal, and it has to be navigable. All right, is the other issue. So that it tends to bring the wetland closer to an actual river or stream. And because that was a recent Supreme Court ruling.
Joke in the industry, depending on the administration, it could be all the way up to your toilet.
Yeah.
I think that's been changed.
And so, and it probably is, we got an environmental group that takes care of all that, when that would get into all the specifics in that's above my pay grade on that.
The point is that these costs don't take anything to account for wetlands related issues if the period that wants to be done would involve.
Correct. When I went to the Corps, talked with them, I told them what we're gonna do. They said, yeah, this project seems correct. Because we even talked about, you got some oxbows in there. We talked about cutting those out. They said, nope, can't do any of that because that's isolating a wetlands or a potential area. And that's a no, that would kill the project. So we're just improving the existing channel that's through there. And there may be some at the time, that was talked about, these are wetlands. If we disturb those, as long as we restore something or put it back that's comparable, and that's part of the construction price, it's no harm, no foul. That's what they said at that time, but they're not going to give the official approval until we have a set of plans that we give to them. Well, if you look at that cost estimate, I believe I have $49 million in there for environmental mitigation. And what that is, that's kind of like a shock. Hopefully it is a shock, because if we went to the Corps and they came back and said, hey, no, if you're going to harm too many wetlands, we need you to purchase credits. Those credits are millions of dollars. And if that came through, then it's killed the project. So it's more of just hey, this is potentially what could happen. Very slim chance it will, but just want to have that in there. So if we do get to that point and the new administration comes in and says, no, we're going to reverse all this,
Well,
Hands are tied.
yeah,
That's more just a little.
I understand, but the definition of a wetland has gone through Supreme Court review and it has been restricted to being contiguous with the stream, not during, check it out. Yeah, so there's, yeah, but it's been reviewed and it restricts the Army Corps of Engineers to calling certain things that are seasonally wet.
Yes.
It has to be in contiguous contact to the river or stream. Because one of the problems is then I dealt with this before in North Dakota, is a dry arroyo, right? For example, that only floods once in March. I was told that was a river or a wetland or a stream. And we walked right out to it and it's dry as a bone, all right, in June, but it was being called a wetland.
It's a tool that gets used politically.
Correct.
To either
Exactly.
encourage or discourage different types of development. period.
Yes, and there's two cases recently before the Supreme Court. One had to do with permitting in California by a developer. And the second one was in Idaho that had to do with the definition of a wetland. It may help us, I'm thinking, is what I'm saying.
So, yeah.
We have one who does wetland stuff and
Okay,
they'll be involved in that. So absolutely.
yeah, that's true. I know.
A couple of things. Are you asking, or is that your ask of the board for additional funds to do this second revised estimate, the revised design?
But that was my third option I didn't get to, but do nothing, find funds for this or try to remodel that and find another option that may or may not be cheaper. I think that those are the three things on the table. So I don't know.
Nothing for action.
No.
There's
No.
just a lot of information.
It's just more of
For an update.
It's more of an update, and I mean, we have some new directors and just kind of refresh everybody on, where we came from, where we're at now. Because, when, I think somebody mentioned Tropical Storm Allison happened in 2001. I mean, after that happened, there was a lot of studies and stuff that came through and looked at improvements and, we kind of looked at some different options doing some stuff, back in 2001. And once we said, hey, we're going to chop down some trees, he was like, whoa, wait a second, we don't want to chop down trees, So I don't want to rush into, okay, this is exactly it. Let's go spend an extra $6 million and do this. And then you find out, oh, we're going to be clearing out a bunch of bare branch. Oh, we're going to be digging these detention ponds right off of Gosling Road. And I just want to make sure that we're all on the same page. We understand where we're going and how we got to this point. So.
Please, there's a bit of shock value here. What's this? Probable project costs of $81 and $82 million on that final page.
That adds in that mitigation cost for that.
I beg your pardon?
That adds in that environmental, those credit costs that I was talking about. That's what it was. It's more of a shock number. To say,
It worked.
Exactly. I mean, I hope it doesn't even get close to that, but like Brian said, a new administration comes through, they reverse a court order and, it becomes a political thing as opposed to a drainage improvement project.
Well, you're gonna do what we did before, just to give us like an up or down or just, was this just totally for information and no even direction?
I think it's just, it's like Eric said, you have to feel there's the, three options of that.
I think we've come a long way. I mean, we all put money up and we got these wonderful loan from the Water Development Board. We got a grant. It would be painful to walk away from it right now.
Well, the thing is
You might end up walking away from it.
you've got, but here's the thing, more than anything, you've got a new model. You've got an updated model that we can run any type of analysis and do what we need to at this point. That's a huge benefit. Where before it was HEC 1, HEC 2, which is, standard models used back in the day, but they're just not accepted or recognized anymore. So, we'd almost have to get the hamster out to start running the little wheel to get the machines going for that old stuff. Now we have something that's new that we can plug in data that if we need to go run it to an agency, they can recognize it, give us the thumbs up or the thumbs down, as opposed to having to write memos or reports based upon something that wasn't before.
So they take your actual model and run it themselves?
But no. We would run it and take that information to them based upon this criteria, and then
I wanted to wrap it up too. So just as a reminder, Esther A is managing this project on behalf of Mud 67, the lead mud. Y'all are a partner through the interlocal agreement, a funding partner, stakeholder. We got LJA on board for engineering, but right now we're at a decision point. We have gone the past number of months. LJA's been working hard to get the model up to speed, but there isn't more scope essentially for them that is currently authorized for them to go do. So we wanted to take a pause, provide you with some results and updates. And, we'll continue to discuss, the various options that Eric laid out. There might be other ones that we're not fully thinking of right now, but just wanted your feedback to help us move forward with the project in one direction or another. But, Bob, to your point, we started off with $11.3 million, a small fraction of that has gone to the model update, but you are dealing with, Water Development Board grant, and you got a 0% interest loan. So there's a lot of money there to do some other stuff, obviously not the full project. So that's the other big takeaway is long-term, if you do this full project, you're multi-million-dollar short based on current cost estimate.
And again, as Brian Yates pointed out, Mud 60 is 1.1%. I mean, it's really in the hands of Mud 67 and Metro or 46, 47.
Yeah.
I mean,
47.
47.
47's got 15%, Metro's got 9.5%, 67 has 62%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're kind of in the caboose here, bringing up the rear, but the party nonetheless. Thank you.
So,
Thank you
the
very much.
same
Is there
item
any
on
other
your-
further questions? Thank you. Thank you, Dan. Thank you, Danny. Anybody else? Good. Okay, agenda item 19, receive the attorney's report. Brian, please.
Nothing in open session.
Okay. You've answered the other question then. Agenda item number 20, the general manager's report, pages 35 to 42.
Wanted to report that we did conduct 2 new director orientations on June 5th and June 10th. I think those went very well. SGA also did one on the 7th. So I think all those went very well. Coming out of ours, identified maybe a new need to develop some workshop series type of topics that we would develop content for and open them up to all the directors as time goes on. So we're going to start working on building kind of a workshop series library of topics that we could then present or have directors come in and learn about as time goes on. I'd asked if anyone over the weeks and months to come, if you've ever, or years for that matter, if you ever have any ideas of things that you might want to know more about, just send them my way and we'll see about developing them into the library. Wanted to point out on the back of your report, a few articles that we included. One on some things going on with the city of Conroe, another one with PFAS. Nothing major to report there. Also mentioned in here a couple thank yous from some residents. We always like to see those and bring those to your attention as well, as our staff's doing a great job to help the customers. I think with that, I'm going to kick it over to John to go through the communication report.
Good afternoon, John.
Page 40, communications report for the month. First page of that brought forward our goals and third quarter objectives from our strategic plan. Something for our new directors. You can see, what's guiding us and reminding you that our efforts are founded on that strategic plan. That strategic plan is reviewed monthly by the Public Education Committee and evaluated and updated annually. And if you ever have any questions about that, want to dig into it with me, your board, I'm here at any point to discuss that with you. Just reach out. Page 2, we've had some important developments with Hallway Consultant. They are consulting us on the infrastructure renewal campaign. But we are now in the implementation phase. So that means we have received and begun reviewing a number of deliverables, including key messaging, website outline, branding guidelines, community survey questions, and then the community advisory group charter. So we've been communicating on infrastructure for some time now, but you're really going to see that effort ramp up here in the near future. I hope that, I believe that the website will be up and running probably within the next 6 weeks or so. Is what I anticipate. Also, we will have an all directors meeting with Holloway. I encourage you to attend. We haven't set a date for that yet, but that's just one more way to keep you guys up to date on exactly what is happening with that campaign. We will let you know as soon as we get that on the calendar. Some current marketing materials there. And then on the next 2 pages, and I did want to note on the water bill, that's actually an error. Those two should be flip-flopped. Right now, our current bill has the auto pay updates on it. And the upcoming bill for June usage, which will come out at the end of this month, that's going to have a notice about are the CCRs, or the Consumer Confidence Reports and Water Quality Reports, that will be mailed out by July 1. So all of our customers will be receiving those by mail. We also post those online, and then we message that through social media, emails, and so forth. Make sure folks are fully aware of that report. And that report is an annual summary of 2023. Is that the right way to put it, Mike?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, for last year.
So if you encounter any questions or concerns about those reports, appreciate you letting us know. And as always, we want to hear what you're hearing as directors. With that, any questions? Thank you.
Thank you,
Thanks,
John.
John.
Okay. Agenda item 21, receive the Woodlands Water Trustees Report. Eric, please.
Sure. I think the main item was to receive the presentation that you received earlier as far as the wastewater treatment plant supplemental agreement. That was the majority of the discussion. And I think everything else is in the report.
It's pretty straightforward. Yeah, I don't think there was any surprises. Questions for General Manager Peterson regarding the trustees report? Okay, I guess that to further Brian Yates' point, I guess we're going to go to closed session. Yeah, we are running long for sure. Pardon me. Yeah, thank you.